I do want women to know that there is an alternative to suppressing their bodies with hormones, that they can see their body as a good and they can live in that body holistically.
Totally. Oh my gosh. It's amazing.
Join co-hosts Jamie Rocci and Teresa Kenny as they educate women about the beauty of the feminine design and empower women to take charge of their health.
They're going to be so amazing. You're going to be so empowered by understanding your feminine genius and your hormone genius. I don't think I could live my whole life knowing this and not sharing it with anyone.
Hello and welcome to the Hormone Genius Podcast, and happy to have a new guest with us today, Melissa Buchan. And Melissa has 15 years of experience in fertility awareness, and she is super passionate about all things related to women's health and the menstrual cycle. We're excited to have Melissa here today. She has been involved recently more in a new program she has developed called Chart Your Cycle. And she is a trained integrative health coach as well. And I know one of her passions that she's really enjoying is actually coaching women in being the best version of themselves, having their best health and well-being. And she is a neo-fertility advisor. And that's exciting because me and Jamie don't know much about neo-fertility. So we're excited to learn about it. So Melissa, thank you for being here today. And we're excited to learn more about you.
It's so wonderful to be here with you ladies. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah. So Melissa, let's start off. Just give us a little background. Like, who is Melissa Buchan?
Well, as Teresa said, I am a fertility awareness coach, and I've been at this for a long time. I've been working with women for over 15 years. And, you know, this journey, when we're in the fertility awareness world as women, it usually comes from some personal place. And that's where my story started. It actually started years before that, when I was in high school and struggling with irregular periods and fatigue and not feeling well and wanting to know what was going on. I was actually studying abroad in France for a summer and had what I thought was a kidney infection. I was in so much pain, didn't recognize that that was actually severe menstrual cramps. And it was embarrassing. It was painful. Mm-hmm. So as soon as we got home, my mom did the good, responsible thing and took me to the doctor so that we could figure out what was wrong. And I remember sitting there that day and being told two things. Well, to be healthy and responsible, you need to go on the birth control pill. And if you ever want to have a baby, IVF is probably your best option. Now, you have to realize I was 16. I was not thinking at all about having children. I just wanted to feel well. Mm. I took the pill because I thought that was the healthy, responsible thing to do. And I went on my way. And the cramps and some of the side effects, of course, that improved because the hormonal birth control pill will do that. But the fatigue never went away. And I just didn't feel well. So fast forward, I was in university studying biology, and I actually learned how the reproductive system was supposed to work. That was my big aha moment for me. And I learned that the hormonal birth control actually just shuts down my system. It's doing nothing to restore my health. And here I was a fairly health conscious early 20-something person. I was trying to eat well and exercise, doing anything I could to restore my energy. But yeah, I was taking something that was completely hijacking my normal hormonal rhythm. So I remember going back to my college apartment, throwing the pack of pills into the trash can, and I began searching for answers. And I actually found the Crate model. I started charting. I was able to actually work with a physician who was trained in reading the charts to get an actual diagnosis. And that was transformational for me. That began my journey of healing. And it was so transformational that I became a practitioner myself, and I haven't looked back. And I've been working with women and couples for the past 15 years. And as you said, when you get into this world, it becomes a passion. So I am truly passionate, and it's an honor to work with and serve women, helping them be the best versions of themselves.
That's awesome. Melissa, tell me a little bit about, so Creighton model obviously has been a foundational point for a lot of people getting into restorative women's health and actually having a doctor be able to diagnose, looking at the parameters of the menstrual cycle. So give us an idea for you, what was like kind of the aha things that you saw even originally in your own charting, and kind of the things that your doctor was able to pick up on? Because I think a lot of people don't understand, well, how come just because I chart my cycles like that helps a doctor actually figure out what's wrong. So help us, help our listeners kind of understand that.
It really is incredible. A well-charted cycle is a powerful diagnostic tool. It's telling the story of your overall hormonal health. And for physicians and clinicians who are trained to read these parameters, they know where to start digging and looking for more clues to see what's going on. For my personal journey, I had the classic PCOS, polycystic ovarian cycle. It was long, it was erratic, and I don't want to get into too much detail. I don't know how much your listeners know about cycle charting, but it was that variable return of peak type mucus. So a long cycle. It was very, very difficult to pinpoint if I ovulated. I didn't ovulate all that often. So yeah, it was just a mess of a cycle, essentially, is what it looked like. But for the mainstream physician, it was, okay, well, we need to regulate your cycle, and hormonal birth control will do that. And I've been off the pill for over 20 years now, and I have beautiful cycles.
Yeah, help our listeners understand, how did you go from a PCOS type of cycle to then now beautiful cycles? And how did NAPRO technology in this charting system help you?
It's a lot of work and a lot of self-discovery and a lot of really understanding what's important to you. So for me, over the years, what keeps me going and working towards a balanced cycle, it's not just about the balanced cycle, but that's a huge affirmation of all of the work that I'm doing is paying off. But it has a direct correlation to my energy levels, to how I feel, to my ability to achieve a pregnancy when I was told that IVF would be my only option. So my journey through NAPRO was actually through cycle-targeted hormone therapy. I thought I might need to have surgery, but actually through cycle-targeted hormonal therapy, and a lot of work is around nutrition and around physical activity, not too much, not too little, but really just taking care of my body. I was able to restore my cycles and achieve 3 healthy pregnancies.
And I think a lot of women, that's the type of answers that they want. I don't think anybody wants really to go into a doctor's office and be handed a bunch of prescriptions, especially when we're young. Like, you look at yourself and you think, well, I'm a young, healthy person. Why am I on all these medications? So if a young person or a young woman can do something more naturally, if they can eat healthier, if they can avoid certain things, then they're going to want to do that. So I know you now have this integrative medicine training too, Melissa. Tell us how that really incorporates into how you approach the woman's body, and how I'm sure it's been amazing to you to be able to see how much more information is out there that you can utilize to help women become the best hormonal version of themselves.
Yeah. So my integrative health coach training has really allowed me to partner with my clients and put them in the driver's seat. So they are really driving the conversation and the work that we do. And it all starts around the fundamental principle of what is their vision for the best version of themselves. And we really have to start there, because like you said, Teresa, you can take the medications, you can suggest the lifestyle changes, but until you realize why it's important to do so, it just becomes a very overwhelming task to undertake. Mm-hmm. So, and a person's vision looks very different from one woman to the next. So where do they see themselves in the next year, in the next 5 years? What does their family look like in 5 years from now? Are they growing their family? Maybe they're entering the perimenopausal years and their family is now leaving the house. What does that look like? And then the next step is being very true to who you are and what you stand for. So what are your values in life? And becoming crystal clear on that, because it's important that your vision and your values align. And when there isn't a cross section of vision and values, but they're actually moving parallel, that's when we see a lot of tension, a lot of disappointment, and a lot of frustration in the healing journey. There's no right or wrong way to it, but if you can take your vision and align it with your values, and that guides every decision you make, then maybe you know that, yes, you do need to commit to a regular exercise routine, or you have to eat a certain way to manage insulin resistance. If you are crystal clear about why it's important to you and what you stand for, then you're more willing to show up for yourself. And I see that women are able to find success and find that true best version of themselves when they show up for themselves. So as a medical clinician or a health coach, we could tell women all day long what they need to do, but until they actually take ownership for it and understand why it's important, there can be a struggle to just show up for yourself daily.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Melissa, tell us a little bit about the Neo fertility system.
Yeah, so Neo Fertility is the new kid on the block as far as fertility awareness-based methods go. So it's not officially dubbed as, like an official method yet. We're actually working to get that off and going. I'm actually not part of the creation of the Neo Fertility system. This is the work of Dr. Phil Boyle, but I am a co-developer with him in the Chart Neo app. And Chart Neo, it's a fantastic way for women to chart their cycles using the Neo Fertility approach, but also any other approach. So it's really friendly to a multitude of fertility awareness-based methods. And I love it because it's HIPAA and GDPR compliant. We take data security very, very seriously. But back to Neo Fertility, it is the new kid on the block, but it does take into account cervical mucus as well as temperature shifts and some hormonal testing. And they're hoping that they will be releasing like the official training this next year. But I've had the honor to work under the mentorship of the creator of it, Dr. Phil Boyle. And so I've been kind of dubbed the first new fertility advisor in the United States. And he has walked me through his process of teaching Neo Fertility. So yeah, I just got off a call with him right before we scheduled this, and we were reviewing charts and talking methodology. So it's a real honor to be able to work with him. But just like I always tell women when they're deciding, okay, what's the best method for me? It's always important to remember it's all the same science. It's all basic reproductive anatomy and physiology, but there are different styles and learning and applications that fit the individual. So you need to really take into account what's your learning style, what's your availability, what is your overall vision for charting your cycle? What are you hoping to get out of it? And that's really how you can find the best approach for you. There are do-it-yourself approaches. There are courses you can take. There are group programs. There's one-on-one work. It's really cool. And I'm sure both of you can agree, being in this area for a while, that the interest in fertility awareness has really exploded over, I would say, even in the past 5 years.
Another follow-up question to that, for the Neo Fertility, what sets that one apart from like, Sympto Pro, for instance, or Marquette? Like, what would set this one aside or apart?
So the Neo Fertility approach itself is the work of Dr. Phil Boyle, and he has specific protocols as it goes to restorative reproductive medicine. So specific protocols for helping couples who have hormonal imbalance or who are struggling with infertility. And it pulls from nanotechnology and from a lot of the restorative work, functional medicine, integrative medicine, and pulls together for his own specific protocols for medical management. And then again, the Chart Neo app is the app that is endorsed by Neo Fertility. But again, we have worked with methods all across the board, talking to them and saying, what's important? What do you want to see in an app? And we do our best that we can to incorporate different aspects.
Cool. I love that. It's an integrative approach and just kind of getting to the root. I always think about that. We can always give progesterone, for instance, for a luteal phase deficiency. But my questions, well, why is there a luteal phase deficiency? Mm-hmm. And then why? Like, because we know it's a cascade. And so that's what I love so much about the whys, us asking why, because we can really dig in there and hopefully get to the root where progesterone doesn't necessarily need to be taken, although it's not bad or wrong. And it's a great blessing, huge blessing, specifically for those really struggling. But, I think that's cool.
So important. Yes. Progesterone therapy is a great jumpstart. And some people always need to be on it, but other people, they get down to why is the progesterone off? That's part of my own healing journey of, okay, why can I not produce enough progesterone, and doing some really hard work in all areas of my life. And when I was able to balance those out, my cycles started balancing by themselves. It was really quite phenomenal. And then just knowing that it goes back to the vision and values and understanding what are the stressors in your life, what tends to throw you back out of balance. And when those things come up, knowing, okay, we might need to do some added supplementation during this time, because it's during certain situations in life that my body in its own unique composition tends to struggle a little bit. Mm-hmm. So it's all about knowing. And that's what cycle charting is all about. And this is why the foundation of the work that I do is teaching women to chart their cycle, because no matter what journey you're on, it starts with that well-charted cycle, which is a daily practice in self-awareness and self-acceptance. It really allows you to get to know yourself at a really deep and beautiful level. And it teaches you a daily practice of how to listen to your body.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Melissa. right before we started this podcast, I'm a women's health nurse practitioner, so see patients. And the last patient I saw was a 17-year-old girl. And she was just here for a sports physical, but, I always ask about the menstrual cycle, that's my thing. And I'm, so do you know, about ovulation? Like, do you ever see this stuff in the middle of your cycle? And she's like, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't really pay attention. Like, I think she wanted to say she's seen it before, but there was this hesitancy, and she's like, I don't really pay attention to that stuff. So it was just a great opportunity. I know I'm not here to see me for her periods, but I just want you to know how important it is to know this information as a woman, because you can only be your own advocate. And like, if you go into a doctor's office someday and you don't know how your body works, then how can you be an advocate for your own health? And so just laying just a seed right there for a girl coming into a sports physical about how important it is to know the normal parameters of your menstrual cycle. I love that. So I guess I would love to know, do you have any stories, Melissa? Just kind of some profound, like awakening.
I do. Well, this is just so beautiful. And Teresa, I can't tell you how excited I am to hear a healthcare professional say that you are giving women this information when this is not what they're coming to you for. Because on my end, the story that I get from women time and time again, when they discover how to chart their cycle and what a well-charted cycle says about not only their fertility, but their overall health, it's the same story time and time again. Why have I not heard about this before? Mm-hmm. Why didn't anybody ever tell me about this? And then they usually struggle with two emotions, either frustration or guilt. Mm-hmm. A lot of the work that I do in those first initial sessions with women is releasing that guilt and that frustration, because you don't know what you don't know. And you're right where you need to be today. And now's the time to get started. But what a gift, Teresa, that you are giving women by saying, hey, this may be kind of uncomfortable to talk about because people say it is, but it's really not. So let's talk about, not just when it was the first day of your last menstrual period, but some of the other parameters within your cycle, because a cycle in a woman, the menstrual cycle is the fifth vital sign. It's documented in the medical literature. Mm-hmm. And I like to take that a step further. A well-charted cycle is absolutely the fifth vital sign in women. We've got this kind of powerhouse of information that if we know what to look and listen for, we really can do a lot to just self-managing our overall health and wellness.
What I think is interesting too, and I think we've talked about this in previous episodes, is just as we're working with women, often we also are working with the men in regards to those appointment slots and times and meetings. And so what I think is so beautiful is just to know that in these charting experiences, not just for the woman, but how the man, how his eyes are just opened to the woman, and that sense of understanding has become so deep, and that reverence and respect for something that wasn't understood before. And so I love it when I'm working with somebody and I can see the shift in the husband. So tell us about that. Like, do you have cases where, the couple comes, the man's disinterested, and then he ends up actually being more passionate than the woman maybe about these things?
Oh yeah. When a guy shows up for an appointment, I know it's going to be an exciting ride, and you're absolutely right. And it's oftentimes the men who are just as, if not more excited. They're asking the questions like, hey, how can I get the app on my phone so that I can monitor where she is in her cycle? And it's such a beautiful thing for a relationship. I always say, if you can talk about a woman's menstrual cycle in a relationship, you could really talk about anything. Mm-hmm. It's such a key level of just really intimate, vulnerable communication. And if you're able to understand each other and understand that, guys are always fertile, they're always raring to go, they're pretty even, Steven. Yes, they have hormonal fluctuations throughout their day, but in the course of a month, whereas women are hormonal roller coasters. And when men kind of start to understand that, they're like, oh, okay, so if it's in the late luteal phase and she's really not being nice, I know not to take it personally. Like, she's struggling and I may not be able to really put myself in her shoes, but I see what's going on here and I can have a better understanding. And, maybe I'll bring home some chocolate and a bottle of Motrin for her. And just to relate to where she is, because guys, they don't experience the monthly changes, but oftentimes they get kind of the brunt end of it, especially if a woman is suffering with hormonal imbalance or PMS. or even just the heartbreak of infertility. Mm-hmm. It's emotionally taxing. Mm-hmm. So if a man is willing to listen, and I think men are. I think men actually are. I want to back up and say I think men are absolutely willing to listen. It's just that the cultural narrative is that they shouldn't care or shouldn't bother. Yeah. It's just a girl thing. And so sometimes if we're conditioned to that way of thinking, we just put it out of our thought process and don't think to address it. But absolutely, in our house, I always say, we're a little bit against the grain here in our house because mom teaches women about menstrual cycles. And so, of course, my kids hear me talking about it all the time. And they hear me when I get excited about my business, and it's all about menstrual health. And so it's interesting to hear when like my son is maybe making my daughter a cup of tea because she's not feeling well, because she's having cramps, and just to see that level of openness and acceptance. And this is just part of how life works. It's not a taboo topic. It's not anything to be ashamed of. Right. And I think still a lot of work needs to be done in that area. But I think just in the fertility awareness is pushing that narrative in the right direction.
I have this quick story to share. So I record these episodes in my closet. So I'm in a closet. It's cute. It's like
you have a really cute closet.
Thanks. I know. Thank you. So I have a door that I can close and all the things. Okay. So I was meeting with somebody through Zoom last week, and my daughter, she's in sometimes she likes to read on our bed. And so of course our bedroom's on the other side of this door. and so whenever I'm talking about anything that I really just don't want her to hear, if I'm talking to a couple, I kind of whisper it into the microphone. I'm like, okay, so how is that, going? Anyway, but I apparently didn't whisper quiet enough, because the other day when I was putting her to bed, she's 8, by the way. She's like, Mom, okay, so tell me about this mucus thing. I'm like, what? It's so funny. It didn't even faze her. Like the word mucus, right now we kind of, we don't like that word. She's 8. She doesn't not like that word yet. So I'm like, oh, this is a really great opportunity, because it's not weird or gross or strange. And so, it's giving that language even that's not shameful to even our young people. And, I didn't go into the whole shebang, birds and the bees, of course, but, there's nothing weird or wrong about how women notice that we have mucus, mid-cycle. So I just thought that was sweet, Melissa, when you were sharing with your
And what an important point you make, because I'm sure with the work that we all do, we've all had those conversations with women where they thought something was wrong with them because they see this discharge. Nobody has told them that it's normal, healthy, actually a sign of optimal health, because if you're ovulating well, your body is functioning beautifully. And they thought something was wrong with them. And it was actually a sign of health. I know we all have stories where we can share that. And it's always very exciting for me to be able to kind of flip that script with a woman and say, no, nothing is wrong with you. This is a normal, healthy sign that your body is doing exactly what it's made to do.
Melissa, I loved the way you talked about the vision and the values, and how a lot of times those are not aligning for women. But it made me think about how it's not just at an individual level, that our vision and values almost in the entire woman's healthcare realm, they're just not aligned. Or it's almost non-existent in the sense we don't even have the right vision or values. But I guess I'm just kind of from your standpoint, what do you think the state of women's healthcare is, and what can we do besides what we are doing and trying to do to help women really see the true vision and values of what women's health should be?
Yeah. And this is a tough one, because I'm so thankful for our healthcare system and for being able to get care when needed. But the frustrating part for me is that a lot of times in women's health, it's either the sole purpose of identifying disease, which is absolutely essential, or getting women pregnant, or getting them, or preventing them from getting pregnant. It's one of these 3 categories. And I think that we're doing a big disservice to women when we are compartmentalizing into just 3 categories, when it's so much more than that. So if we can get back to the basics of really educating women about how their bodies are created and how they function. Again, once a woman knows how her body works, her self-confidence improves, her self-awareness improves. And then they can get back to the vision and the values. And so a lot of times what I see, and you mentioned, the parallel, like the vision and values not intersecting, but becoming parallel, is you're seeing it at a kind of global level, not just in the individual. I see this oftentimes. And what it looks like from a practical standpoint is the heartbreak of infertility. And when you can't really understand it unless you've gone through that, because that desire to have and birth a child is so very strong. To the point that if a doctor is telling you, well, your only option is to do some medically invasive procedures that don't align with your values, you can forget what you stand for and what's important for you, because you're going through that desire and there's a trusted individual who you respect telling you what to do. And the women who come into my program again and again, they are so confused because they felt like they've gone so far away from what they stand for, out of this desire of their heart, which is a good and beautiful desire. And so if we can turn that conversation and really help women to understand, okay, well, there are more than 2 ways to get pregnant. It's not IVF or natural pregnancy, but this work of let's understand why you can't achieve a pregnancy. And just even knowing that if we could, and we may not always be able to get to the actual root cause, but understanding what's going on with your body that you can't achieve a pregnancy. And then talking about that so that they can maybe come to closure with that, or do the hard work to restore fertility and balance their cycle. And then that goes to the next step. Okay, well, yes, then they were able to achieve a pregnancy, which I say this week, I've had 5 pregnancy announcements. I mean, it's been incredible. So like really difficult cases where women are achieving pregnancy naturally. It is so absolutely beautiful. But at the same time, I've had a lot of really hard conversations too of, okay, well, what's next? What lines up with your values? But it leads down the beautiful path of talking about, okay, well, maybe adoption is a good option for us. Maybe fostering is a good option for us. And seeing beyond the current crisis of their health and not being able to meet their goals to their vision that aligns with their values. So I hope I didn't get into too much of a rabbit hole there, but I think it's just it's so much broader than what I think we tend to see in the tunnel vision of how the current healthcare system approaches these issues.
Yeah, that was a perfect example, Melissa, to use. I love that because you're exactly right. So many times it's like I have this vision, but what I'm being offered is not aligning at all with my vision, but I don't know there's anything else. So being able to put this podcast out there and to let other women know that, hey, there may be an approach that actually aligns with your values. Yeah. And you may be able to get to your goals, to your vision in life, and it all align together in a beautiful, happy ending. And I do think this is so important, and I so appreciate you saying it, Melissa. Not everyone is going to have a biological child. And if we do not help women to come to closure on that, then the suffering and grief that continues for them is really detrimental. Yeah. So having the hard conversation sometimes to say, okay, let's think about what else could actually lead to your vision that isn't just biological childbirth. And it's really hard, but it's important. And it can really be so important to finding peace for a couple. So I appreciate that you take that time to do that. I don't see a lot of always medical providers doing it, and we really need more of that out there.
I love how you gave us, that language too, because everyone listening will be able to help, their sister, their daughter, people who suffer or struggle like with what do I do? I'm not getting pregnant now. Just breaking it down. Okay, what's your vision? Okay, to get pregnant. Okay, now what are your values? What are some options that align with both of those things? Even something as basic as that, I think, is so helpful. And anyone can do that. Anyone can do it. Anyone listening, like if it's a pastor of a church who is working with a couple who struggle with infertility, if it's the doctors, whatever the case is. So I love that you gave us that language, Melissa. That was really good.
It's powerful conversations. And this all comes back to really coaching conversations and the work that I do and incorporating health coaching into my fertility awareness work and working with women along their journey. It's partnering with them and taking them and just having the great privilege to walk alongside them in this journey, teaching them about their body and how to read the signs of their body.
Love that. Okay. So in closing, Teresa, unless you have any other last questions before I ask the infamous, why do I always say infamous? the famous question of, what do you wish every young woman knew about her hormone genius?
That it is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful, and it can get very complicated, but you do have the ability to listen to your body and to read it. So I think it has to come back to, with understanding your hormone genius, to chart your cycle. I think every young woman, I think it just should be a standard practice that you learn to chart your cycle. And this is different than tracking your period. Tracking your period is a perfect place to start. And it's very easy and it's not overwhelming. You just mark the first day of your period and you're good to go. And then it's time to take it to the next level of starting to read the signs. And a lot of it we talked about today is cervical mucus, but it's so much more than that as well. It's about your shifting energy and your shifting mood. And it could be even adding things like basal body temperature into the mix, understanding what your body needs during certain times of your cycle. Because ladies, we are not little men. We are created dynamically different in a complementary way. So where men may be able to kind of rise and fall at the same level every single day, we have a cadence to our bodies. And if we learn to really follow and listen to that cadence, I call it biohacking. You can biohack your cycle to really live optimally, instead of what I think so many times women fall into the trap of, I was on fire last week. Like I was so creative and I had these big dreams and I can hardly get out of bed this week. I just want to eat chocolate and sleep. Well, it's probably because you're in the luteal phase and you're getting ready to start your period, and that is okay. But if it comes to a level to where you can't function, there's going to be an alteration. But if you can't function, well, then it's probably time to get some support and help and learn how to balance that out so that they aren't so black and white contrast. But we do need to understand that in the hormonal rhythm of our overall cycle, there will be ebbs and flows, and that is a beautiful thing. And it's exactly the way that you were created to be. So your body's beautiful in its hormonal genius.
Love that. Thanks, Melissa. Thank you so much for sharing your story and these little nuggets, the values and the vision thing. I love so much. The stories you shared. We just really appreciate your time and all the hard work that you're putting forth just to, change our culture, just like Teresa and I are trying to do, just by informing women simply by understanding the beauty of their hormones.
It's been a real pleasure.
What is your kind of website, your programs that we can let people know about?
Absolutely. So go to melissabuchan.com, and my last name's it's a funny one. So it's Buchan, and check me out. And I have a cycle guide. So if you go to melissabuchan.com/cycle guide, you can download this nice PDF that really walks you through some of the they're the 5 most common cycle patterns. And so you can start to discover your own. If you're curious about the cycle charting and feeling overwhelmed by it, you can actually see some well-charted cycles laid out so that you know what to expect. So I encourage you to check that out. And my program is Chart Your Cycle. And if you're interested in learning more, you can always schedule a discovery call. It's a free 20-minute call. You'll get to experience a little bit about what a coaching conversation is and learn a little bit about our program. But ultimately, the goal of these discovery calls are, what's the right next best step for you? Sometimes it is the Chart Your Cycle program, but it may be another program as well. So we don't discriminate against programs. Of course, I love my program, but my goal is to really serve women and helping them to take the next best step in optimizing their overall health and well-being.
Thanks, Melissa, for being with us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Hormone Genius Podcast. Please remember to share our podcast with your friends and family, and also follow us on social media. If you were not aware, we have a YouTube channel, so if you could like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes, we would appreciate that. Thank you so much for your support. We are excited to journey alongside you as you discover the beauty and the genius of your hormones.